Recording in progress, another episode of the Square and Compass podcast back across the pond. I've been across the pond a few times now, but I'm happy to be back with worshipful brother Kelvin Currie. If you want to start, tell us which lodge or the lodges of which you are a member and your current position.
I'm currently the immediate past master at Needles Lodge number 2838 under the UGLE, United Lodge of England, basically. We're based on the Isle of Wright, which is a small island off the south coast of England.
And, I got in touch with you. Well, this is something I really have been encouraging Masons, wherever you are, if you're watching this, to do. So many districts, whether it be or even individual lodges and grand lodges and different Masonic organizations have monthly newsletters that you can sign up for, that you're able to just electronically, and it shows up in your email. And it's a great way to learn about what's happening in other districts and get ideas that you can then apply to your own district and your own lodge about things you can do. I received one such newsletter, and I learned about, it's just even the name of it struck me, a charitable work that you are doing regarding those who have different abilities, different needs, helping them foster communication skills and life skills. It was a really cool program. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about it and your work with it.
Okay, yeah. Basically, myself and a business partner, we run a community radio station here on the Isle of Wight. It's broadcast on FM. And part of what we do is to help young people with additional needs. Usually those are communication skills and communication and language skills, confidence, particularly, which is affected by their difficulty in communication. And we do that by inviting them into the radio studio, getting them to research a topic they like and presenting a short piece on that topic, interviewing whichever presenter happens to be on, and generally turn it into a fun experience then to understand that they can be confident and do the things that they're good at.
And how has that connected to, or how has Freemasonry and Freemasons supported that work?
What's happened recently, and the item you're referring to, is that on my ordinary program, my ordinary show that I do with my wife of an afternoon, we invited in a local chap who I know who is a Mason, but also he was invited to talk about his job, which he's a Toastmaster. He does weddings and events, and he does the whole Lord, ladies and gentlemen thing at the beginning and stuff like that. It was an interesting topic for the afternoon, but we talked him through what we do with the younger people. We have on our show a lady who's been through that path and has additional needs. And he was so impressed, he applied to his charity steward at his lodge for a donation for us. So sorry, you were on mute for that last little bit.
Sorry about that. Did he talk to you about what it was about the program that impressed him and why he encouraged the lodge to make a donation?
He was impressed with the fact that we take the trouble to make the whole thing accessible to people, and we don't push them into doing anything they're uncomfortable with. We prefer to guide them into areas that they like to do. So we don't say you will come in and you will do a report on the latest football match. It'll be come in and let's what interests you, and let's talk about that. And we don't say immediately, let's sit you in a studio and put a microphone in front of you, because that can be terrifying to some. Others, of course, I can't wait to get in the studio. So we're flexible. I think that's probably what impressed him.
And what are some of the topics that the student, I'm not actually sure what you would call them, but the people you bring in, the people with different abilities, the kids with different abilities, What are some of the topics that they've covered so far?
They're many and varied. I mean, the age range is from 11 to 19. So, as you might imagine, there's quite a lot of stuff being talked about online gaming, various games which I have no idea what you do with, but they can talk for hours about games. Many of them are into films, cinema. They'll go and talk about what they've seen at the cinema or online. Sport, of course, is a big topic that they would talk about. We've got one chap who now does a regular podcast for us on reptiles. He's a very keen keeper of reptiles, lizards and snakes and things, and he knows an awful lot about them. So it's very, very wide range and quite fascinating to hear them.
And what is it about radio that do you think there's something unique or special about radio, and what would that be that maybe encourages some of these communication skills and maybe encourages these kids to get out of their shell and grow those skills and abilities?
I think if I had to boil it down to one thing, it would be you can't see the audience. You know it's out there, but you can't see. There's no faces peering up at you from an auditorium. You're just talking to the other person in the room, and there just happens to be a microphone in front of you. We treat it like a conversation, much as we're doing this now, and the nerves disappear after a couple of sessions. People are nervous, there's no doubt about it, because you don't know what's going to happen if you make a mistake. But at the end of the day, our philosophy is it's only radio. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake.
How do the kids how do they find their way to the radio station? Do you get referrals from schools, parents, or where do the referrals come from? Do they approach you themselves? How does one of these kids connect with the radio station?
What we do is we have a very close working relationship with both the schools in our area, and we have a couple of specialist schools, and many of the mainstream schools have specialist units within them to deal with or to provide the additional help that these students need. And we also have a close working relationship with the local education authority. And advertise, we say these courses are available, advertise on our website, advertise on our own station. And we get referrals in from the schools. Some of them come in on their own. The weekend ones, which I run, they come in on their own and help me produce a Saturday show and a Sunday show. And then the others come in often with adults accompanying them from the school they come from, and they come in during the week.
And again, going back to the Masonic aspect of it, what has the support been like from the fraternity? I know you said the lodges, you received a donation from the lodge, but more in general, are Masons aware of it? Do you talk about it in your lodge as IPM? Like what is the connection between the radio station and the fraternity, and especially in your local community?
The connection is largely down to me mentioning it in lodge and at other lodges when I've been visiting. And of course, many of the people I invite in because I think they're going to be interesting to the community, I've met through being in a Freemasons lodge. And I think, well, you do an interesting job. Why don't you come in and talk about it? So it advertises the station, and once they're there, we can run through all the stuff we do, which is in the sort of community area. Because as a community radio station, we don't just have this training course. We support local organisations and community things as well. And they will come back to us and say, like, well, we're organising a charity event at the golf club up the road. Would you advertise that for us? And of course we would. So the connection is two-way.
And how did either the radio station or this program, how did it start? Were you seeing a need for or using radio to help build and foster communication skills? Where did that idea come from? and how long has it been taking place?
Oh, right. My business partner, who was in mainstream radio for many years, wanted to start a community radio station to serve the community. And whilst he was doing that, he noted that there were younger people with the additional needs that benefited or could potentially benefit from some kind of structured training around the use of radio, which would improve their communication skills. Because, after all, radio is basically about communication. And it developed from there. He had a few trial people in to see if it would work, and it's been very successful. And so, moving forward, we decided to turn it into a full-blown course and seek funding for it. And from that point on, we haven't really looked back, to be honest.
When you say course, so do you have these kids returning multiple times? Do you find that some of them do more than one presentation, or they'll present more than one time but on the same topic? What's the return ratio like?
The school one, the weekday school ones, do a rota of a number of weeks, one after the other. So they'll say they come in on a Tuesday for, say, 6 weeks, and then they will do a variety of topics or whichever one interests them. The point is to draw out of them what they can talk about, and people talk about what they know more readily than something they don't know. And so they come back time after time. And what we encourage them to do is, if you are interested in it, why not become a volunteer presenter for our radio station? So we have had a number of those move on from the courses and become presenters on our station. On a Saturday, because it's slightly differently funded, they can come back as often as they like. So there's some people there who, well, I'm going to have to kick them out when they're 18 because they're going to be too old for the course. But that's the way the funding runs. But I'm not going to. They're going to become mentors for the younger ones. So they come back time after time, and we have a regular slot for each of them to fill in that show and on the one they prepare for the following day. So people go around and they either improve their communication and confidence and they go off and do something else, or some of them stay with us.
And I don't even know if we mentioned at the start, but the name of the radio station, and is there like a website? Is it available? I know it's a community radio station, but if somebody, from Ontario wanted to check it out ever, is there a website or place where they can check out broadcasts?
Yeah, you can check the broadcasts out. It's Vectis Radio. It's VECTIS, vectisradio.com. We'll get you that. And there's a listen button there if you want to play. It's also available on your smart speakers as well if you wanted to ask for that. And the courses are detailed on a page called 4PS. That's a figure 4, ps.org.uk. And but all the pages are interlinked. So if you go to the first one, there'll be a link to the second one, and you can find out more about the courses, what we do, see some of the awards we've achieved because of the courses and the radio station. So we're very proud of it.
And what about following through social media, Facebook, Twitter, all that? Is there any channels that people can check out?
Yeah, well, if you look for Vectis Radio on Facebook, we're there. We're on Instagram and Twitter. So you'll be able to find us on all of those. Facebook's a good one because we regularly put up what we're up to, what shows are on. We champion local musicians, so we say which musicians are on a given show, and what we've been up to, fundraising and all sorts of other fun things.
Well, I will add the links in the description. So if you're watching this, head on down to the description, check it out, because it is a very, very, it's a very worthy cause. It's a very cool, it's a very cool program. When I was reading a little bit about it and what you said, it really struck me that, yeah, if somebody is autistic or for whatever reason has trouble with, say, for example, speaking in front of large groups of people or making eye contact or anything like that, radio seems like such a wonderful tool where they're able to just focus on the message and communicating that message, and not on kind of some of the things that can be challenging if you have autism, or even if you're just a shy person, you know, and you have anxiety.
Yeah. And being a proper radio station with an FM frequency and everything else, gives it that air of urgency and fun, which I think drives the youngsters along.
What is I'm just I out of curiosity, the current status of radio? You know, because it's now competing with streaming services and podcasts and everything else. Do you find that there's still a desire for radio? And what's it been like being in the radio business with?
It's definitely changed. It's definitely changed. I think the thing is, you've got streaming services which are programmed by the user. They are great for listening to your favorite tracks, but there's no personality to it. A radio station, a broadcast has a personality. There's somebody there talking to you. All those things. Everyone has said for years that radio is going to die because of X or die because of Y, and it hasn't. It's stubbornly refused to go away. And if you're driving in your car, yes, sure, you can put on, as I used to, show my age, you can stick a cassette in it, in the thing, and play. But people like to have that human voice, I think, and that's what radio still gives you.
You know, and that brings up an interesting dynamic with Freemasonry, which has also, depending on who you ask, been on its deathbed for decades in some cases, depending on who you want to ask. But certainly, you know, with so many things changing in the world and with so much more to do, you know, a lot of people are concerned about membership retention, getting new members, because, you know, why do that when you can be home for Netflix or be home for this or be home for that? I think it goes back to what you said, which is, you know, it's about the human connection. In the case of radio, it's the human voice, but in the case of lodges, it's that human connection that you're not going to get, you know, staying at home with the local streaming service.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, when I go to a lodge meeting, it's about the companionship. It's about the festive board afterwards, and learning the ritual and feeling comfortable in something that's familiar and routine, but not predictable. If that makes any sense. It
does. More so for me, more so for the Masons watching than the non-Masons, but it absolutely does make sense. Freemasonry is one of those things. It's routine, but often unpredictable, which is a strange combination.
It is, but you can go into a lodge meeting with the cares of the world rattling around in your head. Then someone says, "Oh, well, yes, don't forget this ceremony we're doing tonight," and then you're immediately focused on that, and the cares have just disappeared off out the window somewhere. I've found that anyway. I don't know if everybody else does, but you can then concentrate on getting that ritual right, and I feel a lot more relaxed because of that.
Yeah, I've never understood the argument. You know, a lot of people, when they're having struggles, at least I find this, I don't know what you found in your lodge or in your district or your area, but I find a lot of times Freemasons in my lodge, if they're going through struggles in their life or stress or challenges, tend to withdraw from, well, everything, but the lodge included. I've never understood that as it seems to me the opposite of what you should be doing, right? If you're having troubles in one area of your life, whether it's family or finances or whatever it is, it seems to me it makes far more sense to then throw yourself into those other areas of your life that could go well, as opposed to kind of withdrawing.
I would agree with you. It's not. I'm not suggesting that if you've got an immediate member of your family who's seriously ill, you should ignore that and carry on going to your lodge meeting. But if you've got troubles, if you've got worries going on in your head, you get a little break from it, if nothing else, by concentrating on what's supposed to be happening in the lodge and having a nice evening afterwards with like-minded people. But also, of course, lodges are set up to support each other. So if you've got a problem, there will be somebody there who will help you. If it's financial, they'll probably help you. If it's not, if it's just somebody you need to talk to, if they can't help you themselves, they'll know somebody who does. So it's a massive resource for helping yourself through the lodge.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, like you said, there's times when, if you have to be somewhere, you have to be somewhere. Like if your family members in the hospital and you need to be at the hospital, then there's that. But if it's just a general worry or something that is not taking away from lodge, retreating into yourself does not seem. And this is just true for life. I worked in a jail for about 5 years, and if one of the clients, inmates, whatever, prisoners, whatever you want to call them, if one of them was struggling, oftentimes the response was to leave them alone or kind of leave them to their own devices and not push them to do things. And that always seemed to me the opposite of a good idea. You don't need to get in their face, but if they're not keeping themselves busy, all they do is sit and stew about the problem. And that doesn't seem helpful at all. And I think Freemasonry, outside of that environment, obviously, but for Freemasons, it's the same thing, right? When you're struggling and have a problem, that seems to me the time to work harder at Freemasonry, to take your mind off it and to get the support.
I would agree. I mean, you can go into a lodge and your life's in a little bit of disarray for whatever reason, but there's the regular familiarity of the ceremonies, which will just set you right again for at least for an hour or two, and that's got to be worth it.
Well, it's the British expression, right? KBO, right? Keep buggering on, I suppose.
Yes.
Is I think a very good attitude to take, and one perhaps should be taken more often. And that goes back to the radio station too, right? Vectis Radio and your program. Like, I've been fairly lucky in my life. If anything, I probably communicate too much. If you ask some of my friends, but anxiety, autism, whatever the additional needs are, right? Having a program that encourages them to try something new and different, get out of their shell, right? That seems to me a wonderful thing, as opposed to, maybe not providing that avenue and not encouraging them.
It's I enjoy watching them develop from somebody who hardly speak to somebody who can't shut up. I've got a couple there that are just now. I don't know if you know what I mean by driving the desk, but in a radio station, you've got a big bank of faders in front of you, and they control microphones and music. And I know I've got a 15-year-old lad who's got various disabilities. I just say to him, "I'll go and look after that for an hour, and I'm going to go and get some other stuff done." He can do that now. And that's so lovely to see him being able to do that. And people talk and they put their point across. And if you treat them like they can do something rather than put cotton wool around them because they can't, I think it was a lot better.
And do you receive testimonials from, say, parents or teachers about the progress that the kids make?
Yes, we do. We receive many testimonials from teachers. We received the Gold Award from the Community Radio Association in Britain last year for the work we do. We got the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service the year before, 2020. So we do get testimonials from schools, parents, and if you listen to our station, you'll find that the youngsters themselves have made various promotional items which pop up between tracks, talking about how good the course is. And that's all day. They come out every so often.
And actually, I heard you mention the Queen in there. Yesterday, we had a virtual meeting in my lodge, and my pops was there. He lives in Winnipeg now, but he's from Newcastle area, just outside of it. He mentioned that it was the Queen's, on June 2nd, the Queen's, Diamond Jubilee, 70 years or something.
Platinum Jubilee.
Platinum Jubilee. Is anything planned by UGLE or by your lodge? Do you know?
We've got various events going on. I know that my two of the lodges that meet at our Masonic Hall are getting together to have a large barbecue. There's going to my director of ceremonies in my lodge, outside of the lodge, is organising the lighting of some beacons along the coastline, which we've had specially made by a local college. So they're involved not specifically necessarily as Freemasons, but because we're part of the community. There's an awful lot going on in this country in the next few days. We've got all kinds of things planned. So the Freemasons are heavily involved around that, even if it's special meals or parties or whatever.
I really like what you said there. Right, you're Freemasons, but you're also part of the community. I think that's something that sometimes lodges forget. That if you get too wrapped up in the, I see this on the States too, which I'm not sure I feel about, but you get so wrapped up in the esoterics of it and the ceremonies of it and the ritual and all the stuff that happens with, when the doors are closed and the lodge is tiled, that you forget that you're also first and foremost community members, and lodges are part of the community and have a responsibility to it, and are part of it as well.
They are, and it will be things like, as an example, we have a charity walk for the local hospice once a year. We don't organise it, but the organisers come to us and say, can you provide people to stand in high visibility jackets marshalling the route? So you come to someone like the Masons and say, can you spare some people? And of course we can. So the call goes out within the lodge. Anybody available on that day, would you please make yourself known? And there's other things that go on regarding some health aspects, which we would loan premises to do blood tests and things like that. There's all kinds of stuff. So we are physically and practically part of the community. We're not just people in suits behind closed doors.
And I don't know what the UGLE experience has been like. I do worry that that's something that is going away as numbers decline. It seems that sometimes we Freemasons are not as relevant to the communities as they used to be. I've used the example before of it's an American song. I don't know if you've heard it over there in England. Everybody has Copperhead Road by
Yes.
there's the random reference in that song to Mason's Lodge, because in small town USA in the 50s and the 40s, Mason's lodges were, even if you weren't a Mason, you would have been there for something. You'd have gone there for a blood drive. You'd have gone there for a vaccination. In the song, he went there for a police auction. They were places of community as well. And I think that's something that's kind of getting lost. And I think that it becomes a cycle,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we've got two things to look at there. We've got to increase our members with younger people, because if you're not careful, you end up with a room full of grey-haired men. And we've got to point out that we are not there to just please each other, but there to help the community. What is the point of having arms collected at meetings and then just sitting on them? They've got to do something. And we shouldn't be doing that. We're getting better at it. I think, I don't know what it's like across your side of the Atlantic, but having come away from the intense secrecy that surrounded Freemasonry for so many years, for good reason, we now need to double our efforts to be out there in the community and say, yes, I'm a Freemason. I'm pleased to be a Freemason. And I'm pleased that you know that I'm a Freemason. And can I help you?
And I think that's the right approach. And I think that is one of the solutions to these types of struggles. And it doesn't even have to necessarily be, when we talk about relevance to the community, it doesn't always have to necessarily be charitable per se. I mean, I've brought this. Sorry about that. I'm back. I brought this example up many times of, business or economic support for the community. You know, if you're having a lodge meeting, especially in Canada, Ontario, you know, everywhere, right? You're getting it catered in. That helps a restaurant. You're going out afterwards, maybe to a bar. That helps the bar or the pub. If you're having a Masonic Grand Lodge communication or special event, people may be coming in from across the country. That can help the local restaurants, hotels. So it supports everything, you know, and I think that's a really important
Yes,
part of
I
it.
agree. You shouldn't underestimate that. Our lodges here, we tend to retain caterers for them. So we have more than one lodge would be in a building. There'd be 3 or 4 maybe. So the caterers, that's good business for those caterers. And that you know, and that helps spread employment and money into the community, but not by charitable means, as you say, but by practical means.
And so I just think all that stuff is great. And also another way that Masonry has helped the community is through the Vectis Radio station. So if you just want to one more time mention the radio station and the work that you're doing and where people can find it.
Yeah. Vectis Radio, a community radio station based on the Isle of Wight, run by Isle of Wight people for the Isle of Wight. Vectisradio.com, that's VECTIS, the old Latin name for the Isle of Wight, vectisradio.com, get it there. And the 4Ps course, or the 4Ps training school, 4ps.org.uk. We have young people with communication and confidence issues, largely because of additional needs. We give them the opportunity to broadcast, the opportunity to work on something they like to do, and through the fun and, I'll be honest, somewhat pressured arena of a live radio broadcast, it brings them out of themselves.